Welcome to another Bag of Tricks tutorial. In this tutorial I will explain shortly how to enable the movement limitation feature. It's not quite trivial, so that's why I will make this video which hopefully explains it a bit. Well, first, to assign an area as a movement limitation area, you will need to create the area itself. There are several ways of doing this. The most easiest way is either to draw or fill the area. Now, for starters, I have used the Bag of Tricks campaign file and I created a new map. On this map I've drawn two areas just using the standard tools, and I've dragged a token onto this. Okay, now first of all I'll move this token in this area and I'll start to draw area. Now I can use any token to draw. I'll use the area marker as this is more easy, and if everything goes alright, an area marker should have appeared. Now as you can see, it already starts drawing as soon as I move the token. If you're wondering what the dragon was for, this token should appear on the token that is selected. So either it didn't work or I forgot to select it. Anyway, let's move it away. Let's zoom in a bit. You see that, well, now I can start drawing an area. And actually I can use the space bar to set waypoints. And now I have the area filled. Okay, by clicking the macro again, oh by the way, you can see here all the coordinates it's drawing. Now by clicking the macro again, it is turned off, and as I now start moving this token, then the drawing, it doesn't draw anymore. Now the excess tokens we can simply remove, and now we have a filled area. The next step is to actually make an area of it for the system. To do that we need to define it. First step is draw an area, second step is defining an area, and defining area is simply done by a name. Let's call it difficult terrain grasslands map. The name of the token is special area, which usually it can be any token. In this case I use the special area. The layer on which I've drawn on the token layer, as you can see here. Delete tokens when done. Curious if this actually works. And that's it. So okay. Well, tokens now have been removed, and this area here has been defined, but that means that's in the system with a name and it doesn't do anything yet. So if I drag a token over here, and you see that nothing happens. So the next thing I need to do, step 3, maybe I should number them, is assigning an area to a macro. Now where the macros come from I'll explain later. Here. Now what you can see here is an overview of all the maps and all the areas on these maps. So on the difficult terrain map, the one from the campaign, there are 2 areas. The base map doesn't have any area, limited site has 1, VBL doesn't have 1, and grasslands, which we just created one, difficult terrain grasslands map, we can find here. Now here we can select a macro which has been defined to be activated as soon as the token is dragged over it. Now in this case we wanted to test out limit movement, so we use the limit movement. Here you can set when the area is activated, but in case of limit movement, it's the only exception. You don't need to set this because things go automatically. Okay, so basically everything is set now. Only if I drag over it, and it still doesn't do anything. And the reason for that is that the limit movement macro is something I actually built in system and turned off because it fully depends on what game you're playing. So again, you'll need to turn it on. This is in the toggles. So I started the settings of the bag of tricks macros. I went to the toggles tab, and here we have limit movement, and it's set to 0 with ignore. So we need to set it to 1, basically meaning that for every step you take, 1 extra step is added for that area. Okay, now everything is set up. So now if I drag this token over, you will see that the macro is invoked. Now what does it do? Basically it does anything which you say it has to do in the macro, and here you can see areas checked, difficult terrain grasslands map, so that's where you moved over it, starting coordinate, current coordinate, you moved 9. Difficult terrain grasslands, these are the coordinates where you actually passed over the difficult terrain. So you move 6 over the difficult terrain, so you get an additional 6, which you just entered. So your total move is 9 plus 6 is 15, and that's it. Now, the next question obviously is, where are these macros? These macros are in the lib event macro, lib event, the library event macros. This one, which you always should include when you install the bag of tricks. Now the event macros, and for that I need to have selected. Here are all the macros which you also saw in the drop down menu, and one of them is limit movement. Apparently this one. That's a big screen, so I have to make it a bit smaller so you can actually see it, and here everything, well, the code is in. So to make proper use of this function, unfortunately you will need to do some coding. I've given a lot of documentation of how this works, so it should be doable to change this so it works for your framework. But this is how it works. Now, an easier macro to use and to get to understand it a bit is, for example, using the standard trap. Standard trap, what it does, short explanation. The first argument which it receives from the area event is the token that has been dragged, the event that happened, I'll explain that later, and the trigger type. Now, the trigger type depends whether you stepped over a pad, because you can also assign these macros to pads, or whether you stepped onto an area, which are two different types of trigger types. Now, what it does, first it makes the token which you just moved the active token for this macro, then it rolls a d20, it rolls 1d6 damage, and then it simply checks if the attack roll is higher than your dexterity, and if so, then your hit points are lowered with the result of your 1d6 roll. And again, if you failed your dexterity check, then it broadcasts you have triggered a trap and sustained that many hits. It's a very simple, basic macro. Now, let's assign this to that area. Actually, I don't need to move to the map, but let's do it anyway. So again, if I move here over this, you see the difficult terrain still active. Now, first what I'll do is turn this off again, 0. You don't need to, but the point is that, well, let's turn it on again, and I'll show you why I'll turn it off. if I clear this, basically what this macro currently does is that on every move you get this message. So you'll need to tow down the movement limitation macro first before proper use. Okay, so turning it off again. Now, as you can see, now nothing happens. And now we want to assign a different task to Grasslands map, limit movement. Now we want to assign that standard trap, this one. Okay, so, oh, and I forgot to explain, sign area. Now this becomes vital. Standard trap. When is the standard trap triggered? When the token moves onto it? Yes. When it moves off it? No. When it moves over it? Yes. When it does a zero move basically means you pick up the token, you drag it around, and you put it back on the spot where it was. Yeah. So usually I do not use this one. Token leaves and returns to the area. This means you pick up the token, you move it to here, you set a waypoint by pressing the spacebar, and then put it back again. So you actually moved here and back. In that case, you do trigger the trap, and the token moves but remains on the area. Depends on the type of trap, but let's not do it. No, let's not do it. So we leave that off. Okay. Now the event links have been created. Now, if everything is alright, I don't know what the dexterity is of this token. Let's have a look. Dexterity is 10, so there's a 50% chance that you trigger the trap. Let's move over the trap area. Nothing happens. Try again. And voila. You've triggered the trap and sustained 5 hits. Exactly as I explained. Well, that's it. I hope it's clear, and if it's not, then you know you can find me on the forum and ask your questions. Thank you for your time.